This week's focus is on mindfulness of the body. In traditional Buddhist practice, mindfulness is broken down into four foundations, or sometimes referred to as the four establishments of mindfulness. I like to think of it, if mindfulness is a table, these are its four legs. And they are mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the feelings, mindfulness of the mind, and mindfulness of the consciousness. We're going to start by focusing on the body. I'm going to tell you a story during this talk about a time in my life when I really discovered the benefits of, the miracle of mindfulness of the body and how that changed my life. And then we're going to go through step by step a very basic mindfulness of the body practice that you can begin to experience and benefit from right now. Let's get to it. In order to tell this story, I have to go all the way back to the Bronx in New York City in 1983. I was 10. That's when I met and befriended the young man who was ultimately going to be my best friend in life, Christian Regenhard. Impossible to describe Christian in this shorter time, but imagine a small, incredibly tough man who was unpredictable, brilliant, sensitive, artistic, creative, and an incredible human being. We ended up spending our entire childhoods together and ultimately both becoming soldiers in the American military, joining the United States Marine Corps together. After that, we wandered around for some years, and ultimately in our late 20s, so 18 years later, after our meeting, we were in New York City. I was working in an art gallery as an art handler, and he, because he was so tough, had become a New York City firefighter. We had spent 18 years traveling the world, being best friends, thinking of one another as brothers. And then 9/11 happened. And Christian, as a firefighter out of a ladder company in Red Hook, Brooklyn, was running up the stairs in one of the towers when it came down. And he was killed that way. I was 28 and I was not ready for that to happen. I mean, obviously I don't think anybody's ever ready, but I really wasn't ready. I had been raised a Catholic, but didn't really connect to that ideology or its practices. And so in a lot of ways, with that terrible tragedy befalling me personally and so many people in the world and in New York City in particular, I just wasn't ready. I was already standing on one foot, and so that tragedy knocked me down. I ended up spending about a year in nature, just sort of wandering, trying to find myself. I look back on it now and I realize I was trying to come home. I was trying to practice mindfulness. But I didn't know that at the time or have any of those words. I just knew that I needed to be outside, that I needed a lot of time by myself, that I had a lot to process. During that time, I met this incredible woman, a yoga instructor, who had been a circus acrobat in the Cirque du Soleil troupe. So you can imagine what her yoga practice looked like. I mean, it was out of this world. And me and a couple of my friends went to her and sort of threw ourselves at her feet and just said, hey, like, we see you practicing your yoga every morning and it just looks amazing. Like, can you teach us? Can you teach us? And we were outdoors, we were camping, so we had the time. And out of an incredible generosity of heart, she took 2 hours out of her morning every day for 30, 40 days and taught this group of ragtag hikers slash rock climbers slash people who didn't know what they were doing in life and were just living in the desert for months, because I think I spent that whole winter out there. So about 3.5 months in Joshua Tree in the national park there in the high desert of Southern California. This went on for a couple of weeks, and at a certain point, she tapped me on the shoulder after the class and said, Dave, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. She She said, "Are you just exercising?" And I answered honestly and said, "Yeah, basically." And her eyes widened and her body grew tall, and she said, "This practice of yoga is a 5,000-year-old prayer. This is not just a form of exercise. What we are doing is we are intentionally putting our bodies in uncomfortable positions. We are creating discomfort so that we can train ourselves by focusing on something else, by focusing on our breathing, by calming ourselves inside of that discomfort. We are training ourselves to achieve asana. Some people translate that word asana to mean like the posture in yoga, the position. But she was giving me the deeper translation. That asana, this Sanskrit word, really means comfortable seat. And so it's this idea of finding a comfortable seat inside of the storm. No one had ever explained this to me before, and my mind was blown. Here I was, experiencing the greatest suffering in my young life that I had ever known. And this woman was telling me that this practice that I already felt very attracted to was designed to help me to deal with this suffering. And even more specifically, was designed to help me move directly into it and find relief inside of it. And this was very important. This is a very important point. Because I knew that that suffering wasn't just going to go away. Nothing I was going to do was going to bring my friend back or was going to reverse that tragedy. Nothing I was going to do was going to overnight give me some direction or give me the moral compass that I so lacked. And that's not what she promised. She didn't promise a quick fix. But rather, she said, "You're going to suffer. And this is a way to learn how to suffer well." This was something I was really ready to hear. So I just dove into this practice of yoga and trained myself day after day to feel my mind racing, to feel my emotions going up and down. Okay, this posture makes me anxious. Okay, this posture makes me frightened. Oh, wow, I actually feel really strong. I feel really good in this posture. You see, right? Up and down, as we're all experiencing all the time. But while those emotions and those thoughts were cycling through, yoga, mindfulness of my body, mindfulness of my breathing body, paying attention non-judgmentally to my breathing body, because that's what mindfulness is, paying attention with love, paying attention non-judgmentally. Mindfulness of my breathing body allowed me, over time, with great effort and a lot of diligent practice, to start to learn how I could find a quiet place inside myself that was always there. Even when I was shaking in some yoga posture that I didn't know how to do or wasn't balanced enough to stand in gracefully. No matter how much we practice, suffering is inevitable. We are of a nature to grow old, get sick, and die. These are the cold facts. And so whether it's me back in New York City in 9/11, or all of us together now collectively experiencing the times of COVID-19, or some future suffering when the robots finally attack, it's up to us to practice, to, as my teacher, the Zen master Thich Hanh likes to say, to learn how to suffer well, to learn how to get something out of our suffering, something that deepens, something that clarifies, something that supports. Now it's time for the rubber to meet the road. Let's break this practice down. First, we have to stop. We have to take the sacred pause. It's best to begin practicing this in neutral or even positive moments, and then as you get more comfortable with it, to introduce it into those moments where we're really challenged, either emotionally or mentally or both. So I like to start with just when I'm moving from one place to another. So if I'm moving from the couch to the kitchen, if I'm moving from the bedroom to the living room, take one moment during that transition and just stop. First thing you're going to notice in that stopping, if you look, is that the body is likely anywhere from a little to a lot tense. So after you've stopped, invite a softening. Softening of the abdomen, softening of the muscles in the face. You may want to close your eyes or half smile. Then, in that softening, in that space, deeply listen. Just listen to the myriad of wordless sensations that the body is constantly communicating with. Listen to it. And then find ground. So if you're standing, bring your awareness to the earth underneath your feet. If you're sitting as I am now, feel the earth underneath you. If you're lying down, it's even easier. Just feel the bed and everywhere you're making contact with the ground. And finally, in that place of grounded listening, touch gratitude. Just be thankful, if even for an instant, for the body you have, for the ability you have to experience it that way. That's the practice of mindfulness of the body. Notice there's no judgment in it. I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just stopping, inviting a softening, and deeply listening to what's there. And then in that place of listening, grounding myself with the earth and touching a moment of gratitude. It sounds so simple. It's deceptively simple. But make no mistake, that practice changed my life. That practice shifted my course. I became a yoga instructor. I became a massage therapist. I ultimately spent 6 years living in Buddhist monasteries and became a shaved head, brown-robed Buddhist monk. Because that practice gave me a taste of the freedom that's available to all of us in any given moment. The freedom to take a step back from challenge, from confusion, from fear, from attachment to view, and be able to think, to be able to thoughtfully respond. Try it. Try it a little bit. And then try it a little bit more the next day. If you run into any problems or have any questions, great, drop them in the comments below and I will answer you. If you're enjoying this content, please click subscribe and click the bell icon so you can get an alert when I post these videos every Friday. I also put shorter videos up on Facebook and Instagram, and my links to those accounts are below. I promised I'd put a thumbnail up there for you so you could check out a video I made called Mindfulness Practices for Non-Fear, which goes a little deeper into some of the stuff that we talked about here. Next week is part 2 of this 4-part series on the 4 Establishments of Mindfulness, and that's going to be mindfulness of the feelings. I look forward to seeing you then. We got this.